Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon or morning or evening for those of you joining us from another time zone. I'm Lindsay, and my colleague Katie and I will be running today's webinar called CK-12 for Math Teachers. We have lots to cover today, but before we get into the core content, I want to go over a few logistics about the Zoom webinar platform. You should see two different options on your Zoom screen. You're going to see one that's for Q&A and one that's for chat. During today's presentation, whenever you have a question about CK-12, please post it in the Q&A window. We're going to pause for Q&A sessions after each major topic to address any questions that have been submitted in Q&A. The chat window is a place that's more for community conversation. We'd love for you all to introduce yourselves. If you're an educator, feel free to share your state or country, your district, or even the subject that you teach. Just make sure in the chat window that you're sending any general post to all panelists and attendees, not just the CK-12 or to panelists. And that's important because if you don't change that from the default, then we're the only people who can see it. If you want everybody to see it, make sure it says all panelists and attendees. Also, while we don't anticipate any technical issues during our broadcast, if you're having any trouble with your video or your sound, please let us know in Q&A or in chat. So now that we've gone over the logistics for this webinar, it would be great if we found out a little more about you. So we're going to launch a poll here in a few seconds that's going to prompt you to respond to two short questions. So you should be seeing this on your screen. The first question is to get an idea of how long you've been using CK-12. The second question is asking how familiar you are with CK-12's tools and resources. Knowing both of these is going to help us tailor this webinar and deliver the content most relevant for you. So let me pause for a minute while you guys answer those two questions. Notice that on the second question, you can choose more than one answer. Please choose all that apply. Looks like about half of you have answered, so we're waiting on a few more responses. I know there's lots of text to read there on the screen. We'll give you just a few more seconds to lock in your answer. Okay, thanks for submitting your answers. I've got a couple people in the room here who are going to review those, and that's going to help direct our conversation. So right now, I just want to do a quick introduction of CK-12. So let's talk about the mission. The CK-12 Foundation, founded in 2007, is a leading nonprofit organization dedicated to improving student learning by increasing access to educational materials through the Flexbook platform and concept-based modalities. CK-12 offers free, high-quality, standards-aligned, open content through an integrated set of tools for learning, including digital textbooks, concept-based learning resources, simulations, interactive practice, and more. And like I said, we give it all away for free. Our core content and curriculum is for middle school and high school math and science, with some K-5 math practice and videos. However, with the addition of donated resources and user-created content, you'll also be able to find books for other subjects and levels, especially related to social studies and to English. Although it is offered for free, I want to assure you that when you use a CK-12 resource, you can trust that it's the highest quality. CK-12 is used across the world by students, teachers, districts, because it is the best content, not because it is free. We visit all different kinds of schools all the time, including those who have large budgets. And they're using CK-12 because they know it's what's best for student learning. Our content has been developed by hundreds of people who have PhDs. We've had professors, teachers, authors, NASA scientists, and other subject matter and domain experts developing content for us over the past 10 years. Our content is accessible. We've worked hard to make all of our content available across every platform in both print and digital formats. And then our reach, we're expanding. We've got a big reach here with over 15 million active users. And I think that's a number from like last month alone, represented in over 200 countries worldwide. So just a little behind the scenes here, some people wonder how large the operation is at CK-12. Believe it or not, CK-12 is run by a team of about 35 people. Most of us are in Palo Alto, California, with a few colleagues working outside of California and some in our India office. We're all here because we love our team and we love what we do, and we're excited to give people all over the world access to free quality content and resources. So with that, we're going to get started exploring what CK-12 has to offer you. So Katie, it's all yours.
Thanks, Lindsay, for that introduction to CK-12, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. It seems like we have people from kind of all over the world if you're looking in chat. And once again, if you're just sharing to all panelists, make sure you hit that all panelists and attendees so everyone can see what great places you guys are coming from. So today during our webinar, we're going to be covering primarily strategies related to the following topics. First, our concept-based learning and flexbooks, so bite-sized chunks of content supported with varied modalities and full textbooks. Then we'll move into customizing content, so tailoring CK-12 and other users' content to meet your needs. And finally, we'll talk about groups and assignments, creating assignments and seeing student progress on reports, and even a brief mention of integrating with learning management systems. Now, there are a number of different ways to learn any concept on CK-12. We enrich every concept with modalities to help meet students' needs in the best way possible. These core modalities include text, physics and chemistry simulations, our interactive PLICs, videos, practice, and even real-world applications.
So Katie, to bring this all together, now is a good time to show a quick, just half-minute clip of teacher Jonathan Waters, who uses CK-12 as his go-to source for pulling a variety of modalities for his English class in El Paso, Texas.
Much pull everything from it, either the guided reading or the PLICs activities, especially the videos. What I do is I actually compile the lessons together, and I'll take the practice for whatever the concept is, and then I'll create a quiz and attach it to the practice. And then my kids will have to answer the 10 practice questions and then take the quiz, and that's what I use for their grade in their class.
Great, so as you saw in his algebra class there, hopefully he got a chance to kind of pull those resources, and we really want to show you today how you can pull all of those pieces together. So the first thing is where to find these resources. When you go to ck12.org, you're going to find an educational platform providing standards-aligned, primarily STEM resources that can be accessed anytime, anywhere, and on any device for free. As you can see, as we explore, there are a ton of resources. So often the question I get when I do trainings is where to start. And I find that the best way to go about answering that question is based on what any educator is looking for when they access CK-12. Are they looking for resources related to a particular topic? So they might be resources related to nucleic acids or to kind of points on a plane or kind of whatever those different things are. And then we'll go through search, actually in this one, for math branches as well. And then the second question would be, are they looking for a particular type of resource? So Flexbook textbooks for a different class, for simulations or PLICs, Common Core aligned standards for math, or NGSS aligned resources for science. And then kind of via the Flexbooks or those icons, and we'll go through those different pieces as we go into demo. So kind of if you're thinking about those resources related to either a topic or a type of resource, I'm going to explore CK-12 through one of those two lenses. So let me start by sharing our screen and just jumping right into the website. And as I go through, there's kind of two things to know. One, I'm going to be sharing a number of strategies for teaching with you. And one of my colleagues is going to actually paste a link to a doc where I kind of summed them all up. And that's in the chat window. So you do not need to write down all the strategies quickly and take notes as I go. You're definitely welcome to use that resource kind of as a recap at the end. And then the other thing is that because this is CK-12 for math teachers, I'm going to specifically focus on math resources. So if you're joining us, but you're not actually a math teacher and you have a question about another resource, feel free to ask, and we can demo some of that in Q&A as we break and work our way through. But I will be focusing primarily on math resources for this particular topic. So we're on our homepage. This is the teacher website. So it's definitely something that kind of you would see if you logged in and signed up as a teacher. And today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you areas and then talk about the strategies that go with them. And then if you're looking to learn more about any of those specific areas and how they work, we encourage you to check out some of our other webinars or ask us questions, and we can go into them in more depth. So let's say I am teaching a class on parallel lines. The first simplest option might be just to search parallel lines. And you can find our search bar on our homepage. It might even suggest some of our different topics. But if I type that in and hit enter or hit search as I go through, it will pull up our search options. And from here, you can see a couple of different options. You can search by grade options. I can limit by subject. Let's say I'm teaching geometry and I really only wanted to go into the geometry concepts. So that would limit the things that are tagged to geometry. You can see stuff, if I've added things to my library, I could just pull directly from my library. Or our community contributed tab is resources that users have republished to our site. So I could pull all of those. And then you'll see different types of resources. And if you wanted to filter by type, you can see concepts, kind of those different modalities that we talked about, and we'll go into some of these as we go through. But if you see any of these concept pages, I can click on those, and it can take me to that option. And here you'll see a variety of resources. So if I'm searching for parallel lines, I can go in and I can see my reads, my videos, my practice, my interactive Plix, and then kind of all these pieces here. And one of the cool things is that CK-12 offers a variety of resources in order for you to really have the ability to customize and tailor your class for whatever you're trying to teach, whatever you're trying to do. Even giving you options for saying, okay, I need to remediate a student, they're having trouble, I need to help differentiate, and I can actually sort and say, these might be great reads to help catch them up because they're basic or a video that might review there. The other option for kind of looking for a particular topic, so one option was search. I can go into those pages. If I go back to that home page and that little green icon, like green and orange icon, will get you there every time. I can go back in and I can search based on areas. So let's say these are the subjects that I've tagged, but I can see all subjects, and I could go into arithmetic as an option. And here you'll see a number of different choices for categories of topics. Let's say I was teaching a unit on integers and specifically wanted to cover integers in the real world. So if I'm looking for a topic, I could search or I could browse and find it here. And that would take me to that concept page. Once again, with those variety of resources, some practice, videos, reads, etc., as we work our way through. Now, let's talk about teaching strategies. Because we have all of these different options, you could actually create an assignment for students where they each picked a different, what we call modality type. So a read, a video, some of the practice and interactive, maybe one of these real world applications that you can see down here. And you could have a student or a group of students each pick one and maybe create a set of notes and then come together as a class and create a set of class notes on that concept. So that would allow them to kind of use their strengths and what they're interested in, and then still learn that content and regroup and summarize together. Another idea is that, as you can see here, for any of these concept pages, there's this community contributed option. And here you'll see different content. In this case, there's a number of different texts that people might have customized, and it looks like they even customized or created a real world application. So you can even have students edit text, make their own part there, and we'll talk more about customization, or have students pick a concept and make a video, and then you can add it to this site, publish it under this community contributed piece, and share that with others as they're going through. So those are kind of two great strategies because CK-12 offers that variety of modalities to work with. Now, if you were looking For content as well, and let's say you needed content specific to a topic because of a standard that you need to cover, on the teacher homepage, if I go back there for a minute, you'll see at the top this standards option. And I can click on that and click on the Common Core Math option there. And then you'll see standards for middle school as well as high school. And you could browse those, kind of go through, see what's happening. You could say, okay, I needed probability. I wanted to click on that. And once again, it takes you to that page with that variety of resources to kind of differentiate and allow students to work from there. Now, at the top of any of these pages, or at the top of any branch page, you'll see this option for the concept map. And, it's currently under maintenance. So it does make connections between math and science, but you could check this out. And one of the things that it does is that it kind of connects different resources. So we actually overhauled, if you were on our site before, kind of that drop-down menu I showed you recently, we actually overhauled the back end of our system to make it easier for you to navigate. And so in the process, we're updating this to now match that new structure. But this is a great resource when it comes live again to kind of correlate between different classes or different areas and find connections between topics so that you can branch out and maybe find a science-related concept that works together. And so that's a great strategy, is to build a unit with a colleague kind of across math branches or across math and science and maybe collaborate together as you go through. So I just talked about a number of different things kind of really quickly in terms of finding resources for a particular topic. And if you have any questions as I'm going, feel free to throw them in that Q&A option, and I will continue to address them as we work through this. So feel free to do that starting at any point in time. But the other side of that was to say, maybe I don't necessarily need a particular topic right now, but I want to fill in a number of topics based on a type of resource. So if I go back to the homepage, I can browse resources in CK-12 by type as well. So once again, we were just talking about standards aligned books. So I could pick maybe Common Core standards if I was teaching calculus for a grade 11 class. And then it would pull up books that had calculus concepts tagged to those standards. And I could even see kind of what standards are covered in each of these chapters as I looked in there. So I could do that. I could also find specifically flex books by a particular branch. So whether that's algebra or trig. So if we go to algebra, instead of going into the actual concept areas, I could go to the books that are available for middle school, for high school, kind of our all languages, all levels. And when you guys took the poll earlier, it sounds like a lot of you are new. Maybe you just started within the last year, and then a couple of you guys have been here for a while. So hopefully this combination of quick refresher, review, new information, as well as the strategies will be helpful to all of you. But here you'll see kind of our core content, maybe some content that was donated specifically to us, and then kind of the all levels option. I can sort by standard, I can sort by English or Spanish books, or scroll down and see those different pieces. But lots of options to kind of access that. Or even better, I could go here and I could actually pick a book based on where it's coming from and what other users have already customized. So if I scroll down to this explore area, I can click on the schools part. And let's say I was teaching in Texas. I could scroll down to Texas here and look at all of the books that different districts have customized. And we actually have one district down there, El Paso Independent School, that's done a ton of work customizing content. So here you can see some science content at first, and then Algebra 1, geometry, and they actually correlated to address for the Texas state standards, Texas TEKS. And so if you were in that state, it might be a great place to start to kind of, look for material that's already aligned. And then an awesome strategy might be to look at these books and say, oh, this school's right near me. Maybe I'll call them up and connect with them and customize from there. And then in any of these books, let's say I opened one of these, whether that was a book that I had created or that CK-12 had created, kind of whatever it looks like, we actually have for any of these sections a built-in tool to allow students, you can see it right there, that highlighting option. So I could say, maybe I want to talk about an algebra equation. So I can highlight that. I can even add a note. Look up this vocab or something like that and save it. And then students can do this, and at the bottom of their account, they'll be able to see all those notes right in there. So we have a lot of teachers that use that kind of as an activity within a classes to actively read and understand that material as they go through. A couple of other strategies kind of for using text. We have some teachers that use them as a pre-lesson. They say, go check out this read and kind of see what you're looking at, maybe try some stuff out. And then, you know, I noted that there was that English versus Spanish option for some stuff, but at the bottom of any of these pages, we've actually, because we're a digital resource, we embedded the Google Translate option. And so I can select this and pick any language to convert this into. And then, you know, while it's not necessarily a perfect translation, it would allow a user who's an English language learner to actually kind of read that and understand a component of that at a different level. And since I don't speak Japanese, we're going to go back to English. And then we're going to talk about two other ways to browse material on our site. So the first option, back from that homepage, is to browse our interactives. So we have simulations for physics and chemistry, but I'm a math teacher and I could search these, and I know that there's this great one on a water fountain that talks about projectile motion. That's something I taught in pre-calculus all the time. And so I could explore this piece and have students start to explore and kind of understand different angles, different speed, and how that affects different pieces. And when we talk about assignments, this assign to class option will be super, super helpful for you. So definitely go ahead and explore those simulations, even though you're not a physics or chem teacher, especially if you're teaching some of those higher level math classes that kind of relate to equations in both places. And then our Plix is kind of our personal interactive tool. So here you could browse topics across branches. Let's say I was teaching kind of, those are my branches, or I could add new branches. Let's say statistics, if I was going to teach that class this year. And if I went in there, I could kind of explore and check out any of these Plix here. So once again, there's an interactive component. There's some questions. I can kind of play with this, go from there. There's challenge me questions that are a variety of question types. I can just toss in answers. And they're really an exploratory tool. So if a student is struggling, they might actually be able to kind of see what's happening as they go through. So a couple of strategies, and I highly recommend you explore these or join us for kind of the webinars we do specifically on our interactives. But you could always use any of these as a warm-up for a class. You could use it as an exit slip, just say like, try this out, see what's happening, kind of check your understanding as you're working through. And then the last question in here connects. If I just kind of go through here and do some pieces out, it connects to our Plix Cafe. And so you could even have students discuss the answer in the Plix Corner Cafe. They could do it in a journal, they could do it in Q&A for your class, kind of whatever that looks like. So all of those are options. And that last chance for exploring, if we go all the way back, is our adaptive practice. And we're going to cover that more when we talk about assignments. So I'm going to kind of hold off on exploring adaptive practice. But all of those pieces allow for paperless classrooms because they're available on different devices. You could have an alternative learning environment. And you can access them kind of online and across places. So right now, we're going to see if...
Yeah, so Katie just covered a lot of information. Again, in kind of this hour webinar, we're trying to give you an overview of tools that are especially helpful for you as math teachers. So she showed you how to browse some of our concepts and what that means, what our definition of modalities is, and talked about some of the different types of resources. What we would love from you is we've only had one question come into Q&A, but you know, what did she just cover that you guys need a little more explanation on? Please don't be afraid to ask. You know, we're doing live demos here, so we're happy to show you again anything that you might be having trouble with. Also, feel free in the chat window if there's something you're particularly excited about, or, you know, if you want to see if somebody else has used one of these tools, don't be afraid to put in the chat window maybe things that you're thinking about with using CK-12. So maybe we could look at the one question that we did have that was answered via text, which was, I guess there's several people on this webinar who are based outside of the USA. And so what's the best way for them to find some content? Because I know the schools page is just really one place for them to find some content. Looks like you've got this up here, Katie.
So we've actually recently added, I know this summer we had a lot of people do our program that were international as well. And so we've now added an international option here. So we have one from Egypt, one in Zurich, a North Star school, and I'm not actually sure where that one is. We could look at where that school might be based on that. But there's definitely some international places. And once again, if you want to add your stuff to here and you are international, then you would just request. You can actually even claim it right here, kind of going in and looking at our email support and get yourself kind of set up on this page. And then you'd be able to see the, you know, your stuff all there as well. Or you could kind of search and find international.
Another question that just came in, a user said that she missed the Google Translate, so wants to see you click again to show that.
Sure. So if I click on here, on any of our pages on our site, at the very bottom in our footer is this select language option. So here I can click select language and I can pick any language and it will translate that page just like it would a web page. And then I could always go back and put it back in English. So it's based on the Google Translate option. It's not that we have, you know, we have some Spanish books that we partnered with to get clean Spanish translations, but this would hopefully be helpful for you or your students who needed a different variation as maybe even a starting place to customize content.
The next two questions, both are asking about learning management systems, which we're gonna kind of talk about at the end just really briefly. Somebody who's looking to integrate with Schoology and Edmodo, and then a specific question about creating a CK-12 quiz with Schoology. I believe Star, who works with support here, was going to talk about, or were you gonna paste a form in? She's gonna paste a form that has to do with Schoology, some help articles and things like that into the chat window. But Katie, what would you like to say about the learning management systems?
Sure, we're gonna talk a little bit specifically about kind of the different ones, but we are integrated with Schoology and Edmodo. So I'll pull up that tools and apps page right now. So if you're on the bottom footer, you can see the tools and apps. And if you just scroll down, you could find out more information on CK-12 on Edmodo or CK-12 on Schoology, and you can actually link those. Both of those allow students' scores to show up in Schoology or in Edmodo if they're doing practice on our site. So those are both options. Check out what kind of here would be your best bet. Or we have a learning management system one that we specifically covered this summer. So if you are looking for kind of the whole deal on that, in our certified educator program, and I'll just pull that page up here. If you go down to the one on archived webinars and then check out learning management systems all the way down here, we did that session twice, and it's kind of an in-depth look at the different learning management systems and the way they worked. So definitely check those out more, ask us more questions and read up on those, or email support and we'll get you all linked in and you'll be able to see everything you need.
Great questions. Keep them coming. I think at the moment I'm going to steal the screen back, and I have another short video that I want to show you. Let me share my screen again. You guys were just talking about Google Translate, international things, so I think that this video is going to be Perfect. This is a video, I've been traveling around with some other CK-12 members and seeing schools and talking to administrators and teachers and hearing their experiences about CK-12. And this is Dr. Cynthia Ontiveros, who's from El Paso. And she speaks in this video about how incredible it is for parents to be able to access content and help their children using the Google Translate option.
I met a parent who was struggling with supporting his daughter because he did not speak English very well. So I brought up the CK-12 on my iPad. I quickly showed him how he can change the language, and he was nearly in tears, and he felt just so excited that now that he could help his daughter, which was emotional for me too, knowing that this is what CK-12 is about. This is what we want our parents, our language learners, no matter where they come from, no matter what language they speak, they need to find a place in our classroom, and CK-12 helps us to do that.
Now that you've all seen some of the resources our site offers for you to use with your math classes, we want to talk about ways that you and even your students might want to customize content, even beyond changing the language to tailor it to your situation. So we're going to go through 3 topics. The first is our license, which is a CC by NC license. The second is the heart of our customization, which happens mostly with our Flexbooks, which is our digital textbook. And then the third is more about how content you and other users create or customize, how that surfaces on our site through things like that school page that we were just looking at. So I'm going to kick it back over to Katie here.
So to begin with, note that you are able to adapt and share content on our site as a result of our Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial 3.0 license. You can find out more about the specifics of this license, including usage and giving appropriate credit, on our site or through Creative Commons. So with that, I'm going to switch back to a live screen, and we're going to start exploring our Flexbooks, both, as we said, our CK-12 Flexbooks and user-generated ones. So you guys are from all over the country, all over the world. And so given those slight variations in state and local standards, any book you might see could be tweaked just a bit better to fit your class. And honestly, I don't know a single year when I taught where I taught every chapter in a book. So let's talk about options to kind of say, how do I take that and just break it down, put it in the order I want, go from there, and delete maybe unnecessary questions. So what I did, now just a reminder, today is just kind of the brief overview. If you want specifics, we're actually doing a whole webinar on Flexbooks 101 and customization on Tuesday next week. So if this is new to you and you want to explore that more, definitely come check that out. So I'm just going to kind of basic referencing in this part. But in that math, I picked trigonometry. I'm going to click on my Flexbook textbook tab, and you'll see the different books that we already have on trig. Now, I can pick this CK-12 trig concepts book just like I could pick a trig book that another school has done. And either option, if it's published on our site under here, I have the option to customize it. So if I customize right here, I can rename the top. I could say for a demo, October 5th. I can actually say, we're not going to cover the polar system in this half semester course or something like that. So we're just going to remove that section out of there. And maybe I want to cover inverse trig functions before identities. So I'm going to just drag that and reorder. And then I can even add content. I could write my own section. I could add a new chapter. I can even upload from Word or Google, noting that kind of I might have to reformat some as I worked my way through there. But those are all options for customizing content with kind of the basic highest level option. And then let's say I went into one of these options here and I said lengths of sides. Maybe I wanted to edit a section in here. I can actually just click on this edit option here. So this is going to load our editor. And I can update a title, or I could leave it the same if I wanted to. And this would now make a copy of this in my library that I can mix and match with. So one strategy, because of the customization tools that we have, is to really take control of what you present to students. As we showed, you could reorder, you could limit by deleting stuff. I can even go in and rewrite and say, I don't like this introduction. I'm gonna delete this and write some like new introduction here. New intro. I could put it in kind of that standard paragraph option as like a basic introduction. And I could make all of those pieces. I know a school out on the East Coast that I talked to recently that rewrote a lot of their science text for the reading level that was appropriate for their students. And then all of a sudden kids were willing to read out loud in their classes. And then the Spanish versions might be a great place to start to support kind of English language learners. And even kind of making personalized use of this by adjusting it yourself or picking that basic, advanced, or at grade. So you can kind of see basic in here. You'll see at the top these different, your standard word formatting, bullets, italics, underline. I can pick different colors of text. Kind of your standard editor at the top. This is actually showing a multimedia piece. So there's actually a video in here. If I was going to click on that, you can actually preview it. It's a video on the trig functions in there. And then a lot of content for CK-12, in addition to the examples and pieces, you'll find at the bottom the review that we have. And I could adjust any of those questions there. So one thing to think about, I'm going to actually just open a new tab for a second, back on that home page, and say, okay, here we are. And what's the advantage that all these schools have that have started making kind of all of their resources? So another one is down in Tennessee that I was working with. And you might see kind of all of the books that they've created down here. And so the advantage to that common curriculum is a number of things. One, they have one place for their students to find stuff. Districts or departments can provide resources for new teachers. And the biggest thing we've heard about this collaboration and kind of creating resources together as a district is that it provides some of the best professional development because they understand that structure and hierarchy as they work kind of across areas and then up and down as they build out the whole district stuff. So these are definitely options. They're definitely strategies, kind of both using CK-12 books, or if you wanted to start with kind of this Tennessee 8th grade math book that's customized from there. Whatever you wanted to start with, you could do, and you could go in and you could do this customization. But you don't have to. The best thing is that you have that content already. So you could just replace your lecture by saying, okay, let's look at this stuff here. Let's see what resources we have. I'm going to have the kids explore it, watch the movie, read this content, and then really spend the time working with them and going around and strategizing and understanding how that works. A couple of notes just to point out. There is options, as you saw, to like insert video, just that embed code from different places. You could insert images. And we even have a math editor, as you'll see, kind of to specifically format content. And that allows you to create and kind of use these drop downs to see those different pieces and create really formatted, nice, clean equations for your math classes. So in thinking about some other strategies as you're customizing, a couple of options are to build a digital learning playlist. So you could actually create, this section has this video, and then I'm going to pull this read, and then these practice questions. And you can actually pull all of these resources into a Flexbook structure to create your own playlist and really show what that looks like. Another option is to really have students build a book. They could each write a section and kind of create their own notebook as they worked their way through. And they can't change your copy, but they can create their own variation. So maybe they would edit this one read and add their own notes in as they worked their way through. They could add summaries. They could even maybe translate one as an assignment into a foreign language if they speak a different language. And then maybe, as we said earlier, have students make videos and recap sections. Or even kind of, if you're looking, this is within the concept of a book. But you'll see if I just kind of save this one, it's not really ready to show others, so I'm going to keep it as a draft. But I could go into my library at any point in time, and I'd be able to see all of my resources that I made. So here you'll see I started customizing this book and this particular section. but I could create a new thing. I could create maybe a new, let's say, real world application maybe, and have students create one of those as their assignment that relates to a topic. And then that would show up under the community contributed tab if they published it. So kind of allowing them to understand and incorporate all these different pieces. So that's just, as we said, this is just kind of a referencing, refresher, quick hit overview of some of the pieces of our site. And each of these sections is a more in-depth, kind of longer conversation if you want specifics on, okay, I want to edit, but I'm not sure how that works. Definitely join us again or continue to ask us in Q&A.
So we're waiting to see if there's any Q&A questions that come in based on what Katie just showed you. You know, I'm not sure how many of you are thinking about creating a Flexbook or if you have one. Again, our content is grab and go. If you just wanted to start using a book as is, you can do that. Katie just showed you the customization process, which seemed like a lot of clicks, but you can do whatever works best for you. We have use cases where truly a district will just take a CK-12 book and start using it for a year. And then maybe the next year they get several teachers together and they have them really divide and conquer on personalizing the book and localizing the book. So not sure if Flexbook's an area you guys are gonna head. I'm pretty excited about this next section of the webinar, which is about groups and assignments, because I think you guys are gonna love seeing our capabilities with our adaptive practice system. So if there aren't any other questions coming in, which there don't seem to be right now, why don't I take the screen back over again and we'll get ready to start talking about groups and practice. So let me share my screen. And yeah, okay. Here we go. So for this last section, we're going to briefly go through some tools for creating assignments for your math classes. Katie's going to be showing you CK-12 groups and assignments. There's a lot you can do with these. We've done webinars in the past where we spend the full hour just on assignments. So like we keep saying, this is a brief overview to kind of get you excited, hopefully, to dig deeper with this tool. Yeah, so with our groups, we have a couple different types of groups. Our class groups gives you an option to share content and assign work and track progress. Our practice and quizzes, our adaptive practice system is going to make recommendations and adjust levels of questions. And then you just customize practice to make a quiz. And then we've already, briefly discussed the topic of LMS integration, where we do integrate with certain learning management systems.
So with that, I think once again, we're going to jump in to the actual site because that's really where all of the interesting things happen. So the first thing is to talk about groups and kind of this idea of what types of groups we have. So this is a demo account. I've done a number of different pieces with it. You can kind of explore what's happening with groups with that pop-up. You can see I've made some different groups from here. But as I make a group, one of the biggest things you're going to want to decide is, do you want this to be a class group or a study group? So we have two different types. If I make a study group, some of the advantages to that are that it really facilitates collaboration. So this might be something that you want to encourage your students to do as they're working on a project. They could share resources with each other. They could maybe create a learning circle and support each other as they work their way through. And the other time you might want a study group is if you're collaborating with colleagues, if you're building a book and you want to share resources, because in a study group, everyone can share resources to that group. But there's no like kind of teacher lead who's making assignments. So study groups are really for those strategies I just mentioned on collaborating with either across students or across colleagues as you're working your way through. The other option is your class group, and this is really the heart of CK-12 groups. So the ability to assign homework, track student progress, and even have class discussions. So the only limitation there that's available in a study group is that one person gets to share resources, the owner of that group or the teacher of that group, so that your kids aren't just spamming that group with a ton of information and stuff that's not relevant. So that's really most likely what you'd be working off of. And kind of one strategy for right here is that a class doesn't have to be the same thing as a physical class that you have. So we have a lot of teachers that make separate groups for each class period they have, just to kind of break things up. And you can actually see assignments across all of them and easily assign them in different places. But they might even create what CK-12 class groups for different subsets of their class to really differentiate instruction and support students who might need extra practice or advanced work as they work their way through. And then if we went into a group, let's just kind of open one that I have so far. So let's say Jumpstart group. Within any particular group here, you can see kind of the home area, maybe different things that have happened in there, assignments you've made, and our Q&A feature, which is really a discussion board, and that's available in both study groups and class groups. And so here you'll see, check out this great Plix, what do you want to study this summer? And that might be an assignment you can do for class. So a strategy we have is that you could have students post a question or answer a question on there on a particular topic. There's even the option in settings to allow for anonymous posting. So if you really wanted to encourage questions from students that they didn't have to attach their name to, you could allow that choice as you worked your way through. As you're talking about assignments, you could create assignments. You saw the quick assign option kind of across when we were talking about Plix and Sims. That's available on every single thing. So even this book, let's say I open this piece right here, in any section in that book, this is not even a CK-12 book, it's a customized book within there. If I went into a particular section within that book, past all kind of the standards as you went through, I could go through and I could actually understand and assign those different reads within there. So here I could assign this to a class. And so kind of what happens as you work your way through there, kind of one of the strategies that might be great is to really flip your classroom and to assign a video, assign a read, assign a section in a Flexbook or a simulation, and then have students do that at home for homework. And then when they come in, they can do practice and answer questions. They could solve problems together as a class and really see what's happening. The other advantage to easily assigning all of your resources is students that might be absent can still make up content that's assigned to them. They get to track what's happening and where it's going. So definitely a choice as you're going through there. Let's talk about kind of what this practice might look like here. So you could select the practice that's tagged to a particular read, or you could browse practice. So let's go back to that home page and browse practice and talk about practice for just a minute here. So if I click on adaptive practice, I could go into a section, and practice really helps students fill in holes. So I could assign work as a group, or I could have students try to explore and go through this themselves. So if I picked a topic, algebra and then real numbers, we can kind of see what's happening here. Or I could go down and say order of operations and maybe algebra expressions with exponents. And that system will, as you go through here, students can practice the pieces, they can check out those parts here, they could self-explore. So one thing is kind of having students really, if they're doing competency-based work, explore topics and do that practice and really kind of see what's happening as they go through. And our practice, if you haven't used it, includes hints, it includes a scratch pad. If they're doing well, it'll keep bumping them up to harder questions. If they start randomly guessing or getting incorrect answers, just throwing stuff in there. It will actually encourage them to kind of check out the hints or to maybe even try something and read. So just like Sims and Plix, you could use practice as a 5-minute warm-up or an exit ticket. You could, these responsive homework assignments kind of adapt to students as you work. Maybe use it as a check-in as you go through. And then just like our textbooks, all of our practice is actually customizable. So as a teacher, if I go back to that page, I can assign this to my class, I can customize it, I can download a worksheet. And we really don't, customizing practice is its own piece, but I definitely kind of encourage you to go explore that option and maybe even explore creating assignments within a class to see different parts. But kind of looking at this here, and looking and seeing kind of what happened and how a student did, it gives you all of this information. Students see this, you see this, you can kind of say, okay, they got one easy question right, and then they started struggling, but they only spent 44 seconds. Maybe they were just randomly guessing. And so a strategy is really to have students learn to self-assess. Sit down and talk to them in a conference with this idea and say, what does your practice say? How do we break this up and get a better understanding of kind of what's happening and specifics for this? You could even have kids develop their own questions, and you could add them to here in that customization option and create your own questions, and then create a quiz for students out of questions they made. So lots of different options as you go through here. Once again, we're just kind of hitting the strategies that cover and relate to different areas of our site today. But if you're looking for specifics on how to do customization or on how to explore that, definitely continue to kind of check back and go with us as we go.
You had a question come in that was about adding in links to videos and exercises, perhaps from other websites. So you demoed how you could embed those and incorporate those in Flexbooks. I don't know if this one's asking specifically how our groups and classes feature might integrate with other websites.
Sure. So there's kind of two ways to think about this. One is, can I put CK-12 content on a different website? And the answer to that one is by all means, but do so. And so I can share that content. Any of these pages have a unique URL. So I could just pull that URL, or I could share to Google Classroom or on social media. So you can kind of pull CK-12 out and share those resources elsewhere. If you're customizing within our system, the biggest place that we see customization where other resources are pulled in is in those Flexbook structure. And definitely we've had a lot of teachers that will put links out within a Flexbook for stuff that they don't have copyright options for, and that way students could still use those and access those resources. But you definitely could kind of add those in there. If there's something that's copyrighted, you'd want to make sure that they're kind of going out and that's not put within our license. But if you wrote it yourself, or you wanted to kind of embed a video or something like that, then that would be something that you could look at and make sure that it fit within there, and then you're good to go, kind of based on our licensing.
Okay, we are getting down to the last 8 minutes or so here. We always try to wrap prior to the hour mark. This was just a quick video that I think is another good one from a teacher, David Gonzalez, who Katie mentioned earlier about flipping the classroom. And I want to show you just this quick soundbite of his approach to using CK-12 in his math class. Ah, so you guys wanted me to share my screen so you could see the video. I'm sorry about that. Let's try this here. Let me share the screen so you can see David Gonzalez talking about these Flexbooks. My apologies.
Well, for the flipped classroom, the students are assigned the lessons, and within that lessons, we try to embed at least 2 videos. One, an intro video of what the lesson is about, and then a more depth instructional video which shows the process. The students are required to submit their notes from those videos. The notes that we request are more writing to learn type notes. There's a format that they have to follow. So we're asking them to go through the content of the book at that time, not just watch the videos, but look at the content. One of the things that they're to do on those is to write down what did they learn from that video. Please don't write the problems down. We're not asking them to do that, but what did that problem teach you, so that we can address what were their gaps. We also tell them to come in and say what you didn't understand. The value that we're finding is some of our reluctant, or some of our students who are reluctant to ask questions in class will simply stop that video, play it back, look at it again. I do currently have a class of students who were unsuccessful the first time, and as they're in the class for the second time, and I've asked them to go back and look at certain videos as we hit the concepts, and I've asked them, was it helpful for you to really see that video a second time, sometime from the first time? And they said, wow, it made a big difference to us. We weren't aware of some things we missed. So, and the videos, which are also, I think, are great, they're in no more of 5 minutes length of time. And so we're not asking the students to do a great deal. Their homework assignments require maybe 15 minutes to 20 minutes at best. What they do is after they watch those videos, they also have to look down at the key vocabulary we put in there. Then we ask them to check their understanding with that practice. So they're going through with that practice and saying, okay, how many of these problems did I get right? If they got stumped, we know there's hints, but still, if they don't have that understanding, then they can bring that question to class so we can address their needs.
So before we go into our final notes and stay on for any other questions you may have, I just want to recap a couple of different ways in which you can use CK-12 in your classes. And this is kind of the structure that I kind of compiled everything in, and that reference we shared with you earlier and we'll share in our follow-up email. So different ways to connect across schools or states, different strategies for planning, different strategies for kind of in your class or maybe even for homework, and then options for students to really do their own work and kind of use CK-12 as you go through. So definitely check out that resource. We mentioned our tools and apps page. I showed that to you earlier. We have 3 apps. The first 2, Flexbooks and Physics Sims, allow offline access, which is great. And then the practice app is fantastic in that students can access practice and do it on their phone, on the bus, or on a tablet, in a class, kind of wherever you want as you're working your way through. We also had some quick questions on LMS integration. So as we mentioned, Schoology and Edmodo. Canvas also does grade passback at this point in time, and we are working on Google integration to make your grades show up in there as well. So kind of keep an eye out for that, and definitely check out our tools and apps page to see more information.
Another handy resource that was just created is ck12.org/overview. If you're wanting to share with a colleague or review yourself the different offerings from CK-12, this page is interesting. It has some expandable tabs next to our most common kind of products and resources, and then a short overview video that compiles a lot of different people speaking about that tool. So you might want to go to ck12.org/overview for a recap of all of our different tools. We also, of course, want to encourage you to join our CK-12 Cafe, which is Jumpstart for Educators. And this is where you'll find ongoing conversations with educators across the world. And hopefully this will be a useful resource for you in learning more about CK-12 and professional networking. Some of you had been using our Plix, and hopefully more of you are going to do that now that you have heard about them. But we are looking for suggestions of what to do next in our math Plix of the week in the Plix corner. So you'll see this question posted in several of our cafes, and if you've got some opinions, we've got a Plix team here eager to create some Plix and create meaningful questions of the week for you to use with your students. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you for attending the webinar today. Again, this was designed as an overview for math teachers. So we covered a lot of stuff CK-12 has to offer. If you're wanting to do a deep dive into a particular area, Flexbooks. If you're looking to do any customization with a Flexbook, we'd encourage you to attend Flexbooks 101 coming up on October 10th. We're going to talk the simulations and Plix in depth with all of the different functions and capabilities and supplementals that come with that on October 25th. If you're ever not able to attend a webinar, but you need to see some of the content, on our webinars page, you'll see the archived videos available at the bottom. So another thing, you may be hearing about CK-12 certified educators. At this point, this is a summer program. So we did a certified educator program this past summer. There's a lot of good information on our certified 2017 page. So if you go to ck12.org/certified 2017, You'll see some information, you'll see some videos, you'll see some linked articles, just another place to learn more about CK-12. We're currently, in conversations about what next summer's program is going to look like. So be on the lookout for more information about our upcoming summer program. Since you guys did attend the session today, we do have a record of your attendance. And if you're somebody who's thinking that you're going to want to be a certified educator next summer, you might send us an email to jumpstart@ck12.org. We can hook you up with an assignment to kind of put this session on record, counting toward your certification next summer. I don't want to overwhelm all of you who aren't interested in certification about that at this moment, but if you've attended this webinar and you want more information about Certified Educator Program, jumpstart@ck12.org is a great place to do that. For all of our webinars, we always ask for any feedback. So if you have a few minutes and you would like to tell us what went well today, what did not go well, we always want to improve the experience of our users. You can go to this tiny url.com. We're going to put it in the chat window. It's CK12 webinar 17. Again, takes a few minutes, but really helps us in planning future webinars of what our users want to see. So thank you. I want to encourage you that you will always be supported. We have an awesome support team here that if you have some technical questions, email support@ck12.org. We'll get you set up. We're happy to help in any way we can. We also have an active social media following. So particularly on Facebook and Twitter, please consider following us, liking our pages, and telling people how you're using CK-12. So at this point, we have reached the hour mark, so we'll say goodbye to most of you. If there are open questions after every webinar, we always stay on. We make sure that every question gets answered. So we're going to stay on for a few minutes to tackle any questions that we still have in Q&A or chat. Katie, do we have anything waiting for us?
Nope, it looks like our Q&A section is covered so far, but I am perfectly happy to go back and explore any of the things that we've covered in a little more depth. So if you do have a question, feel free to ask that. And if not, then I encourage you to join us kind of when we do go into more of how-to on CK-12 versus kind of that teaching strategy that goes with the CK-12 resources, which was really our goal today. So we'll stay on for maybe another minute, and if we get any questions in there, great. And if not, then feel free to say goodbye, and hopefully we'll see you next week or in future webinars. So it looks like we have a question about where you can find old webinars. So let me kind of pull that up on here. So our resources, the footer is your friend on CK-12. So you can scroll down here and click on the webinars link right at the bottom. And this takes you to, we're in the middle of CK-12 for math teachers. We're actually going to be on here again and doing CK-12 for science teachers in about half an hour with kind of their version of resources and stuff. And then these are the upcoming webinars that we've scheduled out for the rest of October. So feel free to register for those. And then we'll get kind of scheduling for later this year on there shortly. And below that, you'll see the archived webinars. So this is the one we did here earlier this fall. And then at the bottom, if you went to the Certified Educator Program page, you could see, I think I showed you that before, kind of the archived webinars from that program specifically are all on that page to kind of keep them as part of that program. So.
Okay, well, we are out of Q&A, so thank you all for joining us today. We're going to sign off and hope to see you on future webinars. Thanks for joining us.